Thank you, Chair. I'll get started right away. Today we're talking about resilience, and we already asked questions on January 29th about the NATO resilience goals, and those still haven't been answered. And we understand from the Ministry of Health, Welfare and Sport that this is because the minister, who is primarily responsible here, does not want to sign it, even though the questions have actually been answered. So my question is that correct? And yes, why does it have to take so long? Why aren't these questions being signed and forwarded to Parliament? Then we could have prepared for this debate better as well. That is my first question. My second question is actually one I asked before, but I didn't get a clear answer in the previous debate. Is that correct or not? And it can be a yes or no answer. Did ministers, shortly after taking office last summer, receive a briefing from the NCTV at the Ministry of General Affairs about the NATO resilience goals to which they must or are expected to commit? Is that correct or not? If that's not correct, then I would like to hear from the minister. Where exactly am I factually wrong in this statement? Third question, so there are 7 areas to which those NATO resilience goals apply, right? Areas they can relate to. For example, the continuity of government, energy supply. I won't go through all of them. One of the areas they definitely apply to is pandemic preparedness. We also discussed that extensively in the previous debate. My question, that's my third question to the Minister, Chair. Under which of those 7 categories, right, that exist, does pandemic preparedness fall? So that's a very concrete question. So that's question 3. Question 4, in a letter the Cabinet sent on May 12th, the following sentence appears: the NATO resilience goals have been elaborated by the departments under the coordination of the NCTV. And my question is, can we receive that elaboration, or is it classified? So fourth question. Fifth question, so the presentations I just mentioned, which were given to Cabinet members last summer, they are classified, I believe, but that is my fifth question. Is it correct that they are classified? And then my sixth question, what is the classification? So what is the level of confidentiality? That is the sixth question. I am numbering deliberately, Chair, by question. I hope they can also be answered in this way later. So what is the classification and who? That is then the seventh question. Who determines that classification? Is it the government itself or is it NATO? That could also be the case, of course. Eighth question, is the minister willing to release those briefings? That is question 8. And then question 9, if that is not the case, right, we have, of course, already had a debate about this because she says, well, there is sensitive information in it. Can we at the very least receive the briefing as the House that was provided to Minister Agema? We have known this since those budget negotiations from last autumn, in which Minister Agema herself clearly indicated, yes, I have to, the planned cutback of 300 million on pandemic preparedness, yes, I can't implement that because I can't do it due to those NATO resilience targets. So she has been informed about this. There is absolutely no doubt about it. She has said so herself repeatedly, and I would like to receive that briefing. And why? Let me explain that right away. Because the minister and I have a difference of opinion. Because in the previous debate, the minister said, yes, it is actually an obligation of effort. Whereas everything Minister Agema has said points to an obligation of result. That is quite serious. And of course, from that briefing, we can determine what the case is here. So I think it is very important that the House receives that letter in any case. Then the 10th question, who took, this is also a very important question, who took the initiative for those briefings? So they took place at the Ministry of General Affairs. Was it the Prime Minister? That might seem obvious. Or was it perhaps his predecessor? You know, Prime Minister Rutte, who is now Secretary General of NATO. I will move on to my final question, Chair. I consider this a very important question. When it comes to pandemic preparedness, as in the coalition agreement, 300 million was supposed to be cut from that. We've had elections. The voters have spoken. The PVV did well. They managed to negotiate this out. And then suddenly, after taking office, the minister is informed, this all happened, right? Like, no, you really can't do that, can you? So what NATO wants takes precedence, and that's what she was told by the NCTV, by the relevant agencies. Yes, that seems quite serious to me, because then you have a situation where what our voters want, what our citizens want, is overruled by secrecy. Again, everything is secret. None of this is public. Secret NATO objectives that are supposedly more important, and that the government side can overrule because of that. We have one example of this, and that's probably why the minister doesn't want to release all those documents. But can we at least know the number of times this has happened, so it's at least once, where these NATO resilience goals have actually overruled the coalition agreement? That ministers, and in principle this could be any minister, have adjusted their policies under pressure from NATO. That is my final question, Chair, and I hope it's also a request that these questions are answered briefly and concisely, which I'm sure you will also appreciate. And should, of course, I have numbered them, so if any question is not answered, I will follow up, and I hope that this will not come at the expense of my interruptions. Thank you, Chair.